Okay, so let's get started. And we are already recording the session. So whosoever misses the starting of it or whenever they join, they can go back to the conversation in the recording. So, hello everyone. Hello again. Good afternoon. Welcome back to yet another session of Sitecore User Group Nagpur, which is run by Mahima Patel, Sumit Salpekar, Vikrant Punwatkar, and myself. In nearly all our past sessions, we've primarily concentrated on the technical aspects of Sitecore, delving deep into the hardcore development topics like XM Cloud, Personalize, and the intricacies of headless implementations. However, today's session marks as a refreshing change in focus, titled as Strategic User Research and Composable DXP. This session focuses or shifts our focus towards understanding user and customer experience. We will explore how brands can elevate engagement and foster long lasting relationships with their customers by aligning their marketing efforts with insights backed by user research. Join us as we uncover these strategies to enhance a brand's interaction with its audience through a more user centric approach. And who better to enlighten us on this topic than our speaker for the day, Vaishali Dialani, a Sitecore strategy MVP and a senior CX strategist at Conabos. Vaishali is widely recognized in the industry, having named as a CXPA emerging leader and a finalist for CX Leader of the Year 2023, as well as ranking among the top 11 CMS stars globally. Her expertise has been instrumental in helping businesses deeply understand their customers, develop impactful strategies, create seamless customer journey maps, and foster collaborative cultures. Without further ado, I will pass it on to you, Vaishali, with just a note to our audience that they may post any questions that they have during the session in the chat window, and we will make sure to address them at the end. Over to you, Vaishali. Thank you.
Thank you so much for such a wonderful introduction, Neha. I'm really humbled and thank you so much for having me. I'm super thrilled. I'm just going to share my screen very quickly and then we can kind of get into the weeds of it. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes,
Yes.
we can.
Yes.
Awesome. Cool. So firstly, thank you so much for being here today. I am and taking the time out from your busy schedules to join all of us here today. We really appreciate it. Can't believe we're in July. In all honesty, it's crazy to even think that we are in July 2024. How fast has the year really passed? It's been crazy because start of this year was awesome. I was in Dublin. I had the opportunity to present it in Europe, which was awesome. And then I presented last year, and this time I also got rewarded as a Sitecore strategy MVP. So it's been a very busy year as long as working on so many Sitecore projects. I think there's a set of expectations when you come from a strategy background. There is things that they want to understand from a user perspective, from a customer experience perspective. So what I'm really interested to dive into today is focus on strategic user research in the composable DXP space. So why don't I kickstart with my first step, which is the agenda for today's meeting, which will focus on who am I and why am I here? Some of the DIY, did you knows, followed by what's the importance of user research, diving a bit into the marketing research strategies, and focusing on leveraging insights to optimize those digital touch points, and followed by key takeaways. In this session, I'm really focused on why user research. We know about all these possible different things where we talk about modular content, headless architecture, what kind of different integrations. But think about it more strategically is why user research. So without further ado, who am I? A bit background about me is I'm a young, driven, independent girl in my mid-20s, figuring life out, based in Dubai, recognized as Sitecore Strategy MVP, top CX stars by CXM 2023 and 2024, and really humbled to be one of the youngest co-authors of the best-selling book CX5. And why am I here? So my focus here to be here with everybody today is, oops, sorry, one second. Yeah. My focus here to be with everyone today is to really advocate and bridge that gap between research strategy and technology. I've conducted over 500 interviews in the last 7 years of being in the industry. I work as a senior customer experience strategist for Cornerboss, who is a partner of Sitecore, and I really love what I do for a living. I'm so passionate about how human integrations and human emotions work into the world of tech, and to what extent are humans actually driving and influencing business when, or is it really technology? So I'm here to bridge that gap, and that's what I really do for a living. One of the most common things that I've heard is, oh, we don't have enough time for research. Or, we already know our customers too well. We don't really need research. Have you guys heard the same too? I'm pretty sure the answer is yes. It's surprising and really sad that as much as we think we know our customers, we really don't know them. And I feel like no matter what you do, your customers are ever evolving in this space and industry, because there's so much, there's constant involvement of resources, behaviors, needs, they're motivational drivers, that no matter how much you say you don't have enough time for it, or you don't really need it, or we know our customers too well, honestly, that's not true. But that's one of the most common things that I have heard as a part of my everyday living. But did you know, according to Nelson Norman Group, testing with just five users can uncover the usability problems or design problems of up to 85%. 85% sounds crazy. Think about it. You can really spend time understanding and evaluating and prioritizing research. Unfortunately, we just don't do that enough because we don't have the culture for it. We don't have enough resources for it. We don't have enough time for it. We're always just running to get things done in the engagement world, according to me and my experience with all possible clients. So I always have to kind of tell my clients to hold on, pause, think. What are you doing? What are you trying to achieve? Who's your customer? What kind of persona are you focusing towards? And then drive that decision making factor in place. But let's take a step back and really understand, what is user research? According to this definition here, I love some things, and I'm not going to read it out loud because you guys can take your time to read it. But what I want to really help focus everybody on is some of the key things of what user research really helps is understanding users' needs to inform the design of the products in a way that's usable, useful, and delightful. Why delightful? Anyone here who could possibly tell me why delightful? Most of the times, we forget that our customers have emotions, just like all of us. We are also somebody else's customer. We need to make their experience a wow factor to for them to come back to us. And we won't know what their wow factor is if we don't know who they really are and what touch point are they really going through, what their pain points are. How do we make sure our design, our product, our service is really, we're making the best use of technology to help make their experience delightful by triggering the right emotional state of mind. Whether it's a pop up that gives you a better experience and you're like, oh, that's a surprise for me. Or is it a button that does not work, which frustrates a customer? Or it's an experience or a journey or a pathway that a user would be expected to take but doesn't end up taking because we didn't design the best experience for them, unfortunately. Understanding their needs, motivations, drivers, behaviors really inform that decision. And also then the next step is, you know, navigates them to coming back to us again to get that wow experience and focus on that. So some of the things I want to do is, how can we do that? First and foremost, this, did you know, by building a research culture, you and prioritizing user research internally in your business and in your organization, you can help create that customer centric approach where you can help overcome that resistance to change and increase the likelihood of successful implementation. Why do I say successful implementation? End of the day, you know what, all digital transformations become successful, let's be honest. they become successful. We might all have different matrix, different experience of how we choose to do that, but we will get successful. But success is really the engagement after. It's the retention. It's how much they're interacting with you once they've purchased your product or service. But you won't know that till you don't have a culture in place to build that. Most of the time, whenever we focus on implementation, we're like, oh, we have a next project. This is the timeline we have, and this is what we need to do. And we're constantly running behind those timelines and project deadlines. But by focusing on the culture of prioritizing a customer centric approach, understanding who are we designing, what are we designing for, and is it really what they will need, helps us build a culture in place. And you know what? Culture can start with you. You don't need anybody, don't need to have like 10, 15 people for a culture to start. Sometimes it takes one person to kickstart and start implementing something in their daily lives. And for that, ask yourself the right questions. Ask yourselves, do I know my customer? Who is my customer? What do they want from us? What emotions am I wanting to, what emotions do I want to trigger in them when I do a design, a product, or a service using Sitecore? The next piece, which is, I think, super, super important, which is investing in the right technology. We all, along with Sitecore, use a lot of different other products and services based on different organizational needs. It's important for us to educate our customers, to invest in the right software, invest in the right skilled personals, and to be able to overcome limited resources and difficulty in interpreting data. One of the key benefits I feel that we really have with Sitecore is the detailed maturity of analytics and focus on analytics and data driven decisions. Let's leverage it. Let's think about, are we making the right choice for our customer? Do they have the right technology in place? Do they have the right analytics in place? Wait, hold on. Do they even have KPIs to begin with? Let's ask these questions. And third, and the most important one, is educating stakeholders. Our generation, I feel more and more, is getting into user experience and then the earlier generation. So I think it's all evolving. Like, Neha mentioned so beautifully, it's a breath of fresh air because everyone used to be so focused on like, hey, this API is not working, or hey, this is not rendering, or this needs to be done. But we never focus on all of this is back-end stuff. What is your customer getting? What is your customer experiencing really? So by focusing and educating your stakeholders, having a training together, understanding things together, going and meeting the different types of customers, there are so many research methodologies such as surveys, interviews, ethnographic research, focus groups. You can actually spend time with your customers to understand their needs and preferences. But even if you don't want to do that and don't have the so-called time for it, ask yourselves this question. Put yourself as the customer's shoe and say, am I doing the right thing? Would my customer want this? And educate the same with your stakeholders and your teams. Most of the times, I'm sure you all have faced this, is we all have clients where we say, oh, we want to get this done like yesterday. Everything needs to be yesterday. But it is our responsibility as their extended family, as their partners, to educate them and tell them that, what, let's take a step back, think about it. Are we doing the right thing for the customer, not only for the business or for your client? That's super important. But what if I told you you can still learn about your customers at zero cost? Is that something that sounds very interesting to you all? Let me tell you how. With Sitecore, we have the capabilities and the functionality to understand market research strategies using the data available to us. Most of the time, we don't leverage it. I'm not expecting everyone suddenly out of this call to go and start saying, oh, let's ask these questions, but let's go out of office and go on site and go on ground and do all this research. Sometimes we don't have that capability, right? So it's important for us to think about these things very, very wisely. Is what can we do sitting on our laptops, sitting and understanding clients, is experience analytics. With Sitecore, we have the capability and the dashboard to watch and monitor and evaluate customers' behavior and their journey, along with even Path Analyzer, which enables you to look at a map and create that sense. sequential paths and contacts and dots where you can see at which point is which user getting interacting with which kind of campaign, what kind of goals are they triggering, are they achieving their targets, are they achieving the outcomes that we as business want them to do, and if not, what other way can we do it. When I said and mentioned about a part of culture, it's important to be experimental, because if you're not experimental internally, you will not be able to test and work what works, what doesn't work. Simply also like A/B testing, right? Next big thing is optimizing your site. Using experience optimization, you can actually test these things. You can test what's working, what's not working. Do you have control groups? Do you have test groups? Play around with them. Sometimes research does not have to be only on ground. It can also be on your laptops using Sitecore. By using data, we have the power of data in today's day and age. Set your KPIs right. Understand what works for your customer. It's extremely important. I would emphasize again and again. I know there will be things where some things work in the back end, some things doesn't work. There is some kind of data not available, which is not connecting the dots, but start prioritizing it. Start small. I'm not expecting anyone to hear rocket science and say suddenly that, hey, you know what? We'll go all out and we find all kinds of data points to begin with. No, the best way to even really do this out of all these different kinds of research strategies that you can use within Siteco is take baby steps. As an example, if you're in a if you have a client within the manufacturing industry, and for them, their most important product is a vanity product, which is their best selling product. You want to see what percent of users are A, going to the PLP, then going to PDP, and then clicking on that add to cart button. And if they're not going to add to cart, what else are they exploring? Try and get there first. Understand for a business or for your customer, what are the three key things you want to take into consideration from a KPI perspective, and then look at the data that's available. And say if the data point is not available in your system, kind of figure out why is it not there, because most of the times we're just not communicating enough to kind of hit and identify customer goals and customer touch points. But most importantly, we forget a very big piece, which is search. Search is a great way to listen to your customers. Search is a way or a conversation between users and the business, because they're always typing and looking for something. Use your search data to understand what are your customers looking for. Are they not finding it on that specific page? Is your content not placed in the right position? Is it not understood in the right? Is it not placed in the right component almost? Search is the user's lifeline for mastering complex websites. It's important. It's not just a, it's not just like a box that you think it's not a priority. It's just a functionality that's supposed to be there. Most of the times, this search goes way beyond that. So I would highly recommend is, if none of you have ever gone and seen what your customers have searched for, start there. You will learn so much. But what's common between all of them? All these products are undoubtedly powerful. But I want to take a second here and ask everybody on this call to put your answers and tell me here what's common between all of them, all these different market strategies within Sitecore. You guys can put your comments in the chat. It'd be fun to see. You guys don't think there's anything common? Okay, we have somebody typing.
It's me, Vaishali. I'm trying to
Oh,
like understand, like the data is common, user experience, like all of them revolve around the way user interacts with the data and the data is collected. So I think that is common there, but I'm not sure. I'm not
yeah, that's
100%.
absolutely right. That's absolutely right. Anyone else? Any other answer besides what Neha suggested? Jitesh, Mahima, Nikita, Vikrant.
Maybe we all want to hear the right answer from you in just one
There
go.
is there is no right answer. Let me just put it that way. The right answer is actually there's no really right answer. I really believe that the right answer is the customer's journey, the customer's interaction, the customer's behavior, customer's experience, right? Like you beautifully said, it's about those things from a unified approach that we want to focus and look at. We want to understand the common thread between all of this is connecting those dots. We it's all scattered, right? Like it's almost saying that we all work in silos across different departments, but none of us are talking to each other. And if we don't talk to each other, that's the same way data is. If we don't understand which interactions are connected and what, based on the research that we do, are we identifying customers' behavioral patterns? There can be a group of, based on data, there can be females who take a different route to reach to a PLP versus male. And if there is a difference between based on demographics, based on gender, based on age factor, based on location of how customers are behaving, all of this ties down into research. And that's why I think it is extremely important when you look at data, when you look at this, understand it's all coming from a unified approach. Doesn't matter whether you use CDP, XM Cloud, Search, start putting things together. Start connecting those dots individually. I think that's the most important takeaway for everybody on this call is to create more tailored and effective customer experiences is look at this as a unified approach. Remember, how will this really unified approach help everybody? You know more about the customer than the customer themselves. We forget the power we hold. Most of the time, we give this power to the customer, but by doing research, you're a step ahead of the customer because you know more about them. You understand if somebody calls you today, you understand more about why this customer is angry on the call, what experience did they go through, how frustrated they must have felt in that specific situation. By sharing that customer data across different departments and connecting those dots, you are able to leverage the digital data touch points through research. So when I always talk about research, it's very, very, very closely integrated with data that you can use. There are obviously parts of qualitative data and quantitative data. Qualitative data is things like surveys, focus groups, things that you try and find out that might not necessarily be easily visible. But quantifiable data is our KPIs, is the data that we look at within Sitecore that we can leverage and is at our fingertips. So, from a unified approach perspective, I highly recommend thinking about how you can, within your organizations and the different projects that we all work within, how can you help remove that friction at every touch point for the customer using research? Put yourself in their shoes. Active listening and empathy are extremely important skill sets to learn about your customers and take the right path of research for you and your customer. And lastly, is presenting, and based on those learnings, you will be able to present the right content at the right time to the user. Because by then, you actually know more about the customer than themselves, right? So, the beauty of research also allows you to have all these different kinds of components that you have in place, but you will know how to place them, where to place them, what works for them, what doesn't work for them. There's different tools and technologies today that we have, such as eye tracking, heat maps within Sitecore that you can actually leverage, and other integrations that can be connected to Sitecore to help you across different channels. It's web, mobile, tablet, any kind of breakpoints to understand where is the customer looking for a specific information. How are they looking for it? Is this component working well for them? Is this content working well for them? And are they taking the necessary actions you want them to take as a customer? And lastly, it's whether it is experience analytics, path analyzer, experience optimization, or if you just want to go in person and conduct these semi-structured, qualitative interviews, or observe them, or use heat mapping, or eye tracking, or actually just do an ethnographic research. There's also different types of research where you can do a diary research. You can further, evaluate them, but have more quantifiable KPIs in place to break these down into smaller groups. So, my biggest takeaway for you all here is on today's call is there's no one right way to do it. Each project is different, each customer is different, each need is different. But just take that first step. Look at what you have available within your Sitecore portals for what customers are looking for, and how are you looking into data and researching and evaluating and analyzing that information to help your customers. Because just dive into your numbers, they all are at your fingertips. So, highly recommend just start, because that's the first step you need to take to achieve a more customer centric approach for your customers. And with that, I would leave the floor open for questions. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Vaishali, for such an insightful session. I'm going to turn my camera on. And and honestly, I was really pleased and really what do we say, delighted to see the experience analytics and all of those screens, because now that we are moving on to these XM Cloud and these projects, the XP solutions, I have not worked on them, but I remember when working on XP projects, and with Sitecore XP, we used to have these path analyzers, used to have analytics, and when we used to migrate from one version to other, this would have been a challenge to migrate all of the analytics data. So it was like really nice to see, and also to know that these are such powerful tools which our customers can use to like legit build experiences and take their engagement level to a next engagement game to a next level. So really excite was really insightful. And probably like we most of the crowd here, I would not shy away from saying or hesitate from saying that we fall into the development background, but knowing about the strategy tells us a lot about how the decisions are being made before we actually move on to the development phase. Like we need to develop this some feature or put a page or put a component. Now we understand that what goes on into deciding that they want this component, they want to put it on this page. So it was
Yeah,
really insightful, and like you also mentioned, a breath of fresh air for all of us, like for all the sessions that have been going on in our
yeah.
user group.
No, I think you make a very good point. And I think this is also very new for Sitecore in the last few years, that we're diving into more of experience, understanding data a lot more. It has undoubtedly been, and it's a very proud development community. But now that you see they are giving marketing track more focus, they understand that business decisions directly impact on everything that you all create. End of the day, it's that little hug between strategy and technology that Psycho is trying to form, so we can all deliver the best kind of customer experiences in place. And I love the one other point that you really made about was how even though all of you come from development background, it's important for everybody, right? Whether you're from development background or for strategies, to learn off each other. Because
Yes, totally.
now that line is no is very gray. There was a very strict line that this is the business and this is the technology, but that line is becoming gray day by day because of Sitecore itself evolving so much and making those gray lines where even non-technical users can actually go and do anything in almost everything. With that kind of flexibility that business users have to make those strategic decisions and implement it without developers at all times is a game changer.
Yes, totally, totally get it. And we would like to open the forum for questions. So anybody who has a question can put it in the chat and we will have them answered. Any questions from anyone? Okay.
Yeah, interesting. Maybe
All
you all want
right.
to drop in one word to kind of talk about how you found this session. It'd be nice to just know and humanize this experience, right? Because we all are developing so many things for our customers. But it's so nice to kind of humanize this experience. And I know we can't see each other's face, so it'll be nice to at least hear from everyone on the chat at least.
So
Yes.
Vaishali, Vikrant here. Uh, like this is I'm going I'm like taking this topic ahead since most of us are developers. But like if I talk about my personal experience, it's been uh, more than 10 years now, around 12. So at this point of my career, though although I started as technical, but such things I need to know about probably whenever I want to provide any solution. This is something which helps me a lot because at this point I can't think just technically. Probably I need to understand what customer is demanding, what is the best possible solution that we have, and again, this is a CMS, so we need to consider all the aspects around that, not just the technology. So these discussions are really helpful to know how things are, and these gives me uh, a point to think about whenever I'm thinking about or I'm considering to provide a solution of something. So thanks for that.
I'm glad to hear
And
that. Thank you.
and we went a bit experimental with this session with this topic, but we see that this is like a very exciting topic, and we should talk more about strategy, and we should talk more about how uh, and what drives our development work. Like you see a user story, you see a feature coming in, just to have a little insight that okay, they're building this because they want to target that. So this
Yeah.
is very nice, and we would probably have more such discussions around strategy in the coming sessions of our user group. And I guess we have a very good and comment from Mahima, and I'd give you a minute to read that, Vaishali. Right.
Thank you so much, Mahima. That I absolutely agree, and that's very kind of you. Thank you. So looks like only that the looks like the organizers are the only ones who are humanizing this experience. And you made a very good point, Neha, about how developers, like we work so much, right, with developers. And well, I work, the best thing about CX or is that it's more holistic as an experience. Once I collect the user information from the client and I'm the client facing, I put in the user story, I explain the developers what needs to be done, but they come back questioning me. And that is so important. I cannot emphasize how important it is for developers to ask that question back. It's like, why are we creating what we are creating? You just do it most of the time, and then you're like, oh, it's a bug, and we don't know why it is. You don't understand the why behind what a customer wants and what kind of experience they're looking for. And with experience design overall, I work with QA as well as UX designers to put all of these things together to make sure the end product, when it's delivered to clients, has that end-to-end customer experience that we all want to focus on. And developers are a huge part of it because without
Yes,
developers, you can't really
totally.
create any of it, you know?
Totally. Like you mentioned, and like the way Sitecore is like enhancing its products and experiences, that even a non-technical person can come and build a page and a component, but then we still are relevant here. So
100%.
all right.
100%.
Great, great, great. And yes, and like you mentioned that you work with these multiple other people, like you put the user stories and developers come back and question. That really validates one of my concerns or one of my points that okay, there's this requirement, and when you go on to implementing that, it becomes a huge deal. Like they want a field with this kind of data, and to get that data, it's like it's a huge task. But then, like you mentioned, but each requirement is backed up by some kind of research, some kind of goal, some kind of target. So, yes,
And then
we
the
get it
very
now.
point, yeah, and then a very good point is now you know the field that you're putting in or the data you're putting in, how is it going to be used for KPIs? It's like the next
Yes,
thing is how is it going to be tracking the engagement of the user? Sometimes because marketers also are experimenting with research and components and all of this, right? Now you're giving them the flexibility, but because if you didn't provide them the flexibility, it wouldn't really be there for them to track
track.
of
Yes.
this.
All right,
So yeah.
great. So, the final call for questions, and if you want to reach out to Vaishali on any of the socials, I can say it on her behalf from my experience that she would always get back to you and
Oh,
immediately as soon as she finds time. So if you have any questions or if you want to connect with her, these are like she's mentioned her socials.
yeah,
I have talked to her on LinkedIn. You can probably reach out to her on Slack as well to get your queries answered.
absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I loved it. I really appreciate it.
We as well, and I can say it on all of our behalf that we enjoyed this conversation. Now, with this, we come to the end of our session. And like I mentioned, you can reach out to Vaishali if you have any questions on any of the social media platforms. And now I would like to thank Vaishali for sparing some time from her busy schedule to have this wonderful conversation with all of us. And it was so nice to hear about and so insightful to hear about strategy side of things of the work that we do. And for all the attendees, for again, thank you for sparing some time from your busy schedules, and thank you for all the support that you show us by just joining the session. And a big thanks to Proficient, who supports our event, like who's been supporting us since the start. So with this, goodbye, and see you all at the next event. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.